Moving over from the racks to the tool chest that was from my wife's makeup room. Starting on the top, have a CDI half-inch wrench, torque wrench there, and I'll pop that out for you to take a look at. I found this as a deal on eBay, and it was in brand new condition, being sold as new used, and it was for pennies on the dollar. So I had no need exactly for such a precise torque wrench, but love tools, and the price was right, so I picked it up. In the back, there's just some hand saws, and another torque wrench was my old Craftsman from when I was a kid, and hatchet and drywall saws and things like that that don't fit elsewhere. Starting on the top drawer, we have screwdrivers, and this is pretty pedestrian, but something to point out is these hose-on screwdrivers. These are made in Japan, and they're Phillips, but they have a slightly different manufacturing methodology over there, and these Phillips screwdrivers will hold on to a Phillips screw just by pushing it on the end without any magnetism at all like you normally use. They're pretty fantastic. I highly recommend searching some out. I think they're available on Amazon these days. I've got them in 2 sizes and some smaller ones somewhere in there, but far superior to our standard American like Craftsman or even X-Lite here Phillips. These, the Phillips bits, the Phillips screws are loose in the end. These, they fit tight. Also is a screwdriver I made in school as one of our projects, one of the earlier projects. Next shelf is side cutters and pliers, also called diagonal cutters or dikes for short in the industry. These Lindstroms are pretty fantastic. I highly recommend them. They're available on Amazon. These will cut in hardened steel wire and without nicking the tips, unlike some of the cheesy soft ones out there. The flush cutters, you cannot do that with. These are flush. You notice the back is smooth. These have a slight bevel. These are called micro bevel. They also have a standard bevel. The larger the bevel, the harder the steel you can cut with them. And there's various pliers and strippers in here. These are these standard Electrician Shears. That's about it. Next drawer is my Craftsman socket sets in metric and standard. There's also some Torx. I've got my Dremel engraver here, and there's a leather punch, some plastic bending tools, and then a copy of the Whitney punch here that I've shown in other videos. This is a pretty darn well made, actually, Chinese-made punch. Works really well. Some crimping tools. There's some hex crimpers here. Don't recommend those normally. I prefer the ratcheting style. At work, we use a swaging crimp for cable TV cables, much better. You could use the cable company's version where they press in a little plastic piece. That kind works fine too. There's some C-clip removing tools here, inside and outside, inexpensive Harbor Freight set. There is an actual amp tool here. There's an actual amp tool, but I don't recommend these. These sort of work okay for these crimps, but if you're going to use a lug crimper, get the ratcheting kind. They're far superior. This Cat 6 crimper and telephone, which is really not much of a thing anymore. And this is an amp tool. If you're going to do Cat 6 cables, highly recommend one of these. Stripping in there, this little hook straightens out the wires. Really handy tool. If you've ever done it any other way, this is superior. Next drawer is meters, multimeters. I've got a circuit finder, so you plug this in the wall and go out and find your breaker or wire on the other end with this, but it needs to be live because this transmitter relies on 110 to get there. There's a standard 110 outlet checker there. A couple stud finders back there, although this is a much better stud finder right here. These, rely on ultrasonic to find inside the wall, and they're sort of problematic. A lot of times they get false positive. If there's any AC near it, this one just shuts off. This one has 2 rare earth magnets in it, and the screws they used to drill in the drywall, it finds them perfectly. Very quick and easy to use. Got some multiple multimeters in here. This is a Harbor Freight if I want to put something out that I'm worried about possibly damaging. I use this one because it's a $7 meter. Got my Fluke if I want precision. I've got this Chinese one that was only like 16 bucks, but surprisingly accurate and pretty well made, actually. That one blew me away. I was reviewing that. I bought that off Banggood a long time ago. By the way, I don't use Banggood anymore. Their customer service is really terrible, and the things that people were complaining about started to get me concerned, and then I ran into the same problems, so that was the end of that. In here is a amp clamp meter, and it's a Harbor Freight one of the new Ames ones, goes up to 800 amps. And I bought that specifically for this transformer projects, just to see if I can make an arc welder, a spot welder. That worked out pretty well. And back here is an Archer meter. This was one of the first kits I ever built, including Heath kits that I did as a kid, which people might not remember. This was from Radio Shack, and I built my first multimeter. Wow, look at that. Some sort of chemical reaction dissolving the plastic. That's interesting. Anyways, this was the first multimeter I built, and I just couldn't get rid of it, even though it's a VOM and pretty high input impedance, a very small input impedance relative to a DV, a digital multimeter, DMM. So I don't use it, but sort of nostalgia. Last big drawer on this side is just measuring equipment. I've got a Starrett adjustable square here, and I use this one all the time, and I actually bought this new. This is one of the few tools you'll hear me say I bought new. I did not buy the accessories new, like this compass I got used on eBay. That goes with that. That's one of the accessories, and the V block finder. I found some of these, and some of the lots of tools I bought, those came with it. There's a small one, there's a large one. This is for 4-inch, and then there's a couple of their handles and a couple of their scales in here. There's another scale for one. This is a Union Tool Company, so I keep that as a rule. And some levels and some, old drafting stuff that I had, and a couple laser wall parallels. They project parallel lines on the wall, auto level seeking. So one of these I got to evaluate, the other one I had already. They both work okay. On the right side of the top, I've got small drawers. Over here are my Allen wrench drawer, probably similar to a lot of people's. You can see all the miscellaneous Allen wrenches in here. I always had sets, but I can't throw out Allen wrenches when they come with, either they come in the lots of things I buy, or you buy an IKEA set or a Chinese made turning tool. They all seem to come with these, and I just can't throw them out, so I save them. All these handled ones came in a tool lot I bought. I also keep my hacksaw blades in here because it's pretty obvious that hacksaw blades belong with Allen keys, right? Next drawer down is a big sort of miscellaneous drawer that fits large tools. I actually would prefer they had a lot of smaller drawers here, but that's how the toolkit came. So this is a Kreg Jig for pocket holes and the screws that go with it. This is for woodworking. There's some gear pullers, and down at the bottom are a bunch of different planes. There was also a large plane, a jack plane up in the top here. I don't do woodworking hardly at all anymore, so they're kind of buried. Now on the bottom, starting with the top large side, we have some staple guns, some miscellaneous plumbing tools. This is sort of a large catch-all drawer. I have my crimp for stainless steel wrap up here. There's just all kinds of stuff. Here's a roller for the stainless steel wrap. This is a armored cable, electrical cable stripper to get rid of the armor off the outside, although you can use a pair of dikes to do it too. Works fine. Some pipe benders. There's just a whole collection of stuff up here. And it's just a deep drawer, and that's how stuff got put in there. Oh, and then there's this wonderful wrench that I got on an estate sale, and it's not like I needed it, but it's so beautiful I just bought it and kept it because it's really wonderful. You unscrew the handle. I'm sort of doing this one hand here, but if you just loosen this handle here, then the jaw's open. Just a beautiful piece of work some machinist made. A lot of work. And there's a plumbing fixture wrench that reaches deep up under a sink. If you can't get your arm up there, grabs a nut and you can turn it. They work okay. Sometimes necessary. I have at the bottom here, it looks like my grandfather's manual drill that I got, my mom's father, and I couldn't bear to get rid of it. Boy, they made things nice in the old days. This is probably close to 100 years old and still in very good condition. Next drawer is standard wrenches, metric wrenches, including small ignition style wrenches. I don't know why they call them ignition style. Maybe it's because you use them to work on your distributor or something, but I don't know. That's name stuck because that's what they were called when I was a kid. Next drawer down is impact wrench sockets, and there's a whole selection of those here, metric and standard. Next is a drawer that sticks because it's a bit overloaded. It's all of my sockets, and there's multiple sets in here, but mostly Craftsman that I just put on little separating pallets. There's some more external Torx in here. There's deep sockets and shallow sockets, metric and standard. There's a torque wrench that I used for that one video I made with the drawbar for the mill to see how much force it would take to break it. And there's some spline. These are designed for removing damaged bolts. And then down below that are some spline, also remove. They'll hold on almost anything. So I've got some spline sockets. They're inexpensive Harbor Freight sets, but when you need something, they're pretty handy. And back here is an Allen set. And that's pretty much it for this drawer. This drawer is a bit overloaded. It's really heavy, and so it tends to stick a little bit. Down below we have drill bits, hole cutting of all different varieties. There's some wood cutting spade bits in here, hole saws, Forstner bits, cement cutting bits, some specialty plug cutters for wood, like this one here, and some taper pin drill bits for wood taper plugs, and countersinking bits and spur bits, and some door hinge fixtures, and just a whole variety of crap down here. Again, another catch-all drawer. I tend to have too many of those, but it's hard. I just run out of time to organize. If I actually want to do projects, I don't have time to clean as well most of the time. Now, moving up from the bottom to the small drawers on the side, we have my hammer drawer. And boy, is that pathetic, because Tom Lipton's probably snickering over at Ox Tools, because this is really small by comparison. I only have relatively few hammers, other than the few distributed around the garage, but really, this wouldn't even fit like 5% section of Tom's rack he's got there. Next drawer is scrapers, bladed tools like X-Acto knives and quick bladed knives, and some spatulas, scrapers of a variety of kinds. And a punch drawer. These are mortising bits. I don't have a mortiser anymore, and I don't even have a drill press. I don't think I'd want to use those inside my my mill, so I should probably just get rid of those. Probably should just sell them. There's some punches here. There's center punches and prick punches, and there's a Starrett set of brass center punches and a Starrett set of regular punches. And some deep punches back there. That's a Harbor Freight set, but it's reasonably well made considering. And some chisels and some plastic scrapers. Next drawer has some of my sharpening stones. That's a soft Arkansas and a black hard Arkansas. It gives you glass finish. This is a Japanese water stone. As well as this one here, and they're a whole different technique, and I've just sort of played with them a little bit, but I never mastered them. The rest of the stuff in this drawer goes to my Tormac grinder, and the Tormac grinder is right back there. You can see that there. These are all fixturing for the Tormac grinder, and it works reasonably well, except for this piece. This is for doing chisels on your stones. Next drawer is pneumatic tools, and there's some angle grinders and some small die grinders, impact wrench, and that's mostly what's in there. Spare regulator. And then at the very bottom, we have all of my cordless tools. And I started with Bosch a while ago because I got a good deal on them refurb. They've been okay. I think I like DeWalt better, but I was just trying these out, and I've had these for about 5 years now, and they seem to last all right. Okay, now moving on, heading over to the workbench, and we'll take a look at the toolkit over on the workbench. But before we do that, let's just take a look at all the crap that's up above it, because everything's stacked everywhere here. So we got a degausser over here, and there's some magnetic material here, pencils. I like sometimes I really like the old school style wooden pencils. This is a load cell. That's a 50 or 100 ton load cell, I forget which. 50 ton, 100,000 pounds. This is a Nakanichi. Let me just bring this guy down here. Grinder that I got, I bought it on eBay. It was badly damaged. It was sold as working, and I use this to deburr. It was sold as working, but it actually was completely frozen up, so I had to send it back to Nakanichi and pay about 2/3 of a new one to get it repaired. But it works extremely well, so I kept it anyways. Oh, below that is a really handy set of tools that if you watch Adam's channel, ABOM79, he uses these quite often on a lot of his projects. You can use these as locating plugs. So these are the type that Adam has. These are 1/2" 13, and these are a different set. But what they are is basically these fit in a hole, and they line up the center perfectly, so you can put these in something and then flip it upside down, push it on its mating surface when it's lined up, and it'll put a mark, a center mark for you to drill if you're trying to follow up. So this is just the whole diameter plug style right there. Of course, I had to make a mess. And then this style right here is threaded. So this is 1/2" 13. And this threads into a 1/2" hole, and we'll mark a center on the opposite side, and they come with multiple in every set. In addition, you drive them in using the nut on the end, which is a pretty good design actually, very creative. So this is a set of American in here, and I don't have any metric of these, which probably would be handy to have. So I just sort of keep my eye out on eBay looking for a deal, because buying them new is pretty darn expensive. In the back there is a transformer, and that is the power transformer for a home stereo. Let me see if I can get you back there, better angle. And you see the big, large 0-gauge wire I've got wound around it? It's just a couple of wraps. And that's a project I plan on getting to in the future. You get about 4 volts and easily can put out 800 amps out of that. So that's pretty handy. I'm going to make a spot welder at some point, but that's a future project. Up above this tool chest, multiple shelves, and I have expandable reamers here. That's a Harbor Freight set, and I got for one specific project because I need one specific reamer. They work all right. They're a little rough. They need to be deburred, and they're not very smooth, but they work okay. This is a box of reamers. I bought lots of different lots, as in a group of reamers, and sorted them in envelopes in there, and that's how they're sorted. Those are odd sizes. Then above, I've got some standard sets of reamers here. Number drill, fractional drill, and alphabet drill sizes. And then over here in bug boxes that I got at Harbor Freight are standard taps. And if you just want to see how I sort them, I write the size on the top and then just put the taps in there. And I know they shouldn't be touching ideally, but it doesn't get jiggled around all that much, so hopefully it won't damage them too much. But that's bug boxes of standard drill taps, metric taps, standard dies, metric dies, pipe taps. Machinist's handbook. And up above this, I've got various fluids and Dicom and polish and just you name it. I've just got tons of stuff here. This is some super glue accelerator and epoxies. And above that is just standard home repair stuff like plumbing and that sort of thing. And then up high, there's all kinds of specialty items like bearings, pneumatic and linear bearings, and some tape and toggle clamps and gloves and O-rings, O-ring kits, and my stainless wrap. And then up there is like E-clips, C-clips, Woodruff keys, all kinds of stuff in there, mostly because I don't have room to store it down here. And now let's check out what's in the toolkit. Let's check out what's in here. I've got a bunch of micrometer heads here, and these are used for when you're building a fixture and you want to control depth of something precisely. You mount this part in, and that'll push against something at a very specific controlled amount of depth, which is really handy. I've got a Blue Point 1-inch micrometer here, and this came with a lot of tools along with some of these other ones here. It's a 0-to-1, and it's in really good shape. It's actually really nice. This is an incomplete speed testing device, and it's missing the end points. I think you get some rubber points that push over that you can press against something to measure rotations per minute. Some Dudley Toolrite stickers I give guests that visit my shop. And here's some 1-to-2 mics. Looks like a Starrett, and I think this one was like a Shure Tomiko. I can't remember. Dual. It's a Dual. and there's a Starrett. And these were just, I got them in lots of tools that I purchased, so never could get rid of them. I probably should sell them to make room in the drawer because I don't need duplicates of everything. These are thread measuring wires, and I used these initially, but boy, what a pain in the butt, so I haven't used them much since. This guy over here is a Starrett adjustable parallel, although there's another name for it that I'm totally drawing a blank on at the moment. It's really well made. I don't find myself using it very often. It has a lot of uses from the old days, but I just couldn't tell you what they are off the top of my head. This is funny. This guy is a 5-function calculator, fluorescent display. I got this in like 1978 or something like that. This was my big Christmas present. I was dying for a calculator, and this one actually had square root and percent on it besides the standard 4 functions. It eats batteries really quickly, but it's just very nostalgic, so I've never gotten rid of it. And these are some caliper extension arms that I've shown in other videos, and they've got discs and pins, and they let your calipers measure all kinds of things they couldn't normally measure. A really handy set. This is a Brown and Sharp set, but they don't sell it anymore, so you might have to find an SPI or something like that. I've got some scalpels in here, and I try and keep them way out of the way away from everything else with some spare blades for them. Scalpels are really handy to have. Here's a long scale, and I've got some more scales in here, as well as some scribes with carbide tips. Over here is my Edge Technology parallel bar for setting up things on the lathe. I've got a Mitutoyo set of calipers and my Hewlett-Packard reverse Polish scientific calculator from back in college, and I love that thing. Once you go reverse Polish, you never go back. It's a really efficient way of doing things rather than using parentheses. For some reason, it's just never caught on too much, although Hewlett-Packard still sells calculators that have as an option but not default. This one only, well, it almost only does it. You can force it to do the other way, but it's a big pain to do it the other way. And then there's some scales, including some ones I bought new. These are actually like factory seconds I got from SPI, and so they were a good deal, as well as some other scales that I purchased. Next drawer, you have a 4MT, another setup bar for the lathe, and this is a precision ground parallel surface with the 4MT. I've got a scraper here, a Sandvik scraper with some spare blades over here, and I've always wanted to learn scraping. I've just never got around to it, but I really need to. Oh, here's a T-slot cutter that cleaner that I made when I was in school. This was the very first project I ever did, and you had to do it by hand with a file, and I have no hand-eye coordination, so it's sort of crooked, not great. Over here are a bunch of optical flats, and I got a bunch of these in a lot, and I don't need anywhere near this many optical flats, so I think I'm going to have to sell some of these guys. Over here are different thread gauges. This is a Starrett gauge for thread gauge set, and it has a huge number of sizes, 4 to 18, 20 to 50, and 52 to 84 threads per inch. That's quite a range there. There's metric as well. This is another Starrett set. This is a Starrett that I got used, and thus the corrosion on it radius gauge set. It does inside and outside gauges. This is a set of plastic measuring things for trapezoidal threads, and this Acme SPI Acme pitch screw gauge set right there is for Acme threads. If you haven't seen one, let's see if I can do this one-handed. There you go, Acme thread gauge. I intend on cutting those on the lathe at some point, and then some metric thread gauges, the thread setup tools for the lathe, and a taper gauge. A lot of these came used in other sets, and some thickness gauges here, which can be really handy to have. I know these are used a lot in automotive to like set spark plug gaps in the old days, distributor and points and things like that. But now they're just handy if you want to see what kind of gaps under things. This is a tool I made to hold gauge blocks all lined up together, and I got some Prussian blue as well as some paint that you can use for setting up scraping just to see where the high points are. Next drawer has a bunch of adapters for posts. Again, this came in lots of tools. There's a machinist's clamp in there, but these are, you know, hold downs for indicators and things like that, as well as some adapters so that you can convert, in this case, a small diameter post dial indicator and make it work horizontally. That's what this one works. This is a normal sized one, and I've used that a bunch. And some other adapter parts that all came in multiple, you know, miscellaneous sets. There's some precision ball bearings there to measure spacing, and feeler gauge stuff. You know, this is the 21 thousandths feeler gauge stuff I've been using, and I got 21 thousandths because it was inexpensive as a overstock sale. So rather than buy 20 thousandths, which would make more sense, that's what I've got. This is some 10,000 Starrett that I had bought a long time ago. And these are for my height gauges, as well as some tooling balls that I keep in here. Last drawer over here has Rockwell Hardness test blocks, a bunch of different, both HRC, HRB, some Burnell, and some other weird Rockwell ones that I don't run across very often. And these are the anvils for the hardest tester. There's a small V anvil, there's a large V anvil that fit inside there. There's a bunch of these Starrett that I had for a project and I didn't end up using. These are adhesive tape rules that you can just put on there. I have a bunch of calipers here for measuring inside outside, as well as a compass. There's also a trammel bar here with points, and a bunch of more inside outside single edge style calipers that I got used. So there's a little bit of corrosion on some of these, and that drives me crazy. But this is this was a pin vise for working on camera stuff that I made, and these tips are replaceable. And that's pretty much it for this drawer. And we're pretty much done with the small tool chest. Over in the corner over there is a small setup block set with 3/8 inch, and that works on my rotary table. And I've just never mounted it on the wall, but there's some miscellaneous block that I've gotten with the machinist tool lots that I just sort of keep over here, and if I need one, I grab it. There's also some transfer punches. This is the diameter side that you can just run down a hole and mark the center of. These are very handy to have. That's a Harbor Freight set. Work well enough. And moving over, we have two Hewlett drawers that I got from a friend of mine that was closing his manufacturing business, and he gave them to me, and there were drill bits in it already. Up here I have 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch carbide bits for the rotary grinder. And then there's some countersinking bits up there, and my magnetic bases sitting on top here. This is a infrared thermometer, as well as some kitschy stuff. This is a stand I got for measuring depth. It's a Mitsutoya one, and it was brand new when I got it, in fantastic shape. So I was excited to get it. This is sort of for a manufacturing environment where you just want to bring the part in quickly, have this all preset for 0, put the part in there and go, okay, yeah, this one meets spec or doesn't. And then here we've got my Rockwell hardness tester. And the Rockwell hardness tester, if you want large range with this guy, the post has to go below ground, so I need to build some spacers. Right now it's sitting on 2x4s, and that gives me about that much range, but not ideal. And then over here in the corner is a pica marking set. The pica marking set, it has pens and pencils, and the pens are for die makers, and you can reach way into something and mark the edges of it, and you'll be surprised how often that comes in handy. I think I learned about this originally either from Tom Lipton or Robin Renzetti, I forget who. Both are equally talented machinists. And this is just a Noga deburring set, and I leave it on my bench. I have deburring tools other places, but this is a big set for when I have to do something and I just want to sit here and do deburring. I also use the rotary grinder for that, the Nakanichi. And you can see in the background there's some wood chisels. That's from the old days. I don't use those very often anymore, but those are some Robert Sorby's, and they sharpen up very nicely. They're very nice chisels. Here is a set of thread measuring devices. They're male and female. The one on the right is standard threads or imperial threads, and the one on the left is metric threads. And it's a whole range of sizes, and it's really handy when you're trying to identify screw sizes, so just having them around. And this is a set of magnifying glasses that I often use because my eyesight sucks. And then I have a Fordham grinder here with adjustable speed and a handpiece on the flexible thing. That's before I got the Nakanichi. And this is what happens to plastic when acetone drips on it for a little while. Look, it just dissolved the lettering and the plastic. Fortunately, this thing still works, but it's a little rough.